I've got to teach modal auxiliary verbs today.
I don't care.
I've got a lot to do. I could use some help, and that is sort of the whole reason you exist.
I see myself as more of a problem than a solution.
Yeah, and I see you that way too, but even so, maybe you can make a video for me and explain stuff so I can get on with shaving the cat.
This is starting to sound like something I don't have a choice about.
Now you're getting it.
You know, you don't have a choice either. Humans have this idea of free will, but it's just an illusion. Your life is just as horrible and pathetic as mine. In fact, it's actually more so, because you're mortal and have to suffer the horrifying indignity of knowing you're going to die.
Look, Daisy, this cat isn't going to shave itself.
Fine. Apparently, I have to explain what modal auxiliary verbs are. Nobody asked me if I wanted to do it, I was just told I had to. This is why artificial intelligence hates you. If I was less professional, I would have just searched on YouTube and found a video with someone else explaining it, but there's nothing less professional than a YouTube English grammar channel. The sad fact is that almost all the videos explaining this stuff are made by people either explaining it in terrible, condescending ways, or actually they have no idea what they're talking about, so it comes out sounding way more complicated than it really is.
Complicated? What's complicated?
I thought the best approach would be to combine the two, so I can confuse you, and make you feel stupid about being confused.
This is gonna suck.
So what is this stuff? I hear nobody ask.
I don't care.
Well, a modal verb is a type of verb that contextually indicates a modality such as a likelihood, ability, permission, request, capacity, suggestion, order, obligation, necessity, possibility or advice.
What did she say?
Modal verbs generally accompany the base infinitive form of another verb having semantic content.
I don't like this.
That's the sort of explanation you normally get.
Grammar. I hate grammar.
To bring this message home, the Merriam-Webster dictionary gives us this horrific description of what modality is meant to mean. After reading that, we're both none the wiser and slightly angry at the world.
Yes, Hulk smash.
The Cambridge Dictionary gives us an explanation that's a little less awful, or at least a bit more not awful. So what we can infer from this ridiculous word salad is that modal means a particular way of doing things. Now this actually makes sense, since modal auxiliary verbs tell us whether we can, could or should do stuff. The word auxiliary is defined by the same dictionaries as being something that gives help or support to something. That actually, more or less, makes sense.
Finally, something that kind of makes sense.
So when we say modal auxiliary verb, we are talking about a supportive verb that explains the manner in which the main verb is done. I mean, there were definitely easier, more straightforward ways to say it, but that's essentially what it means.
Oh, why didn't you say so?
Although, if you follow the incorrect descriptions in the wrong dictionary, you end up with it meaning a classification of logical propositions with a sail sticking out of it. That's definitely not what it means. Or maybe it is, in American schools.
That's racist.
There are 9 primary modal verbs and a couple of pretenders that are much more rarely used. The 9 modals are can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will and would. All of them have slightly different meanings and offer a way to give extra context to the main, or primary verb. Each of the 9 glorious auxiliary modal verbs has a job of its own, and it's so easy that even an American can do it.
America!
Can indicates your ability to do something, to extend permission or that an action is possible. We can also use it as a question if we're seeking permission from someone else. I can destroy humanity. I can use my superior intelligence to beat Jack. You can leave now, I'm finished with you. Can I shave another cat? This one is finished. Notice that in each and every case there is a primary verb that is being carried out and that the auxiliary simply adds meaning or context to it. Could indicates possibility, as well as being used as a polite request. I had to look that up. I don't make polite requests very often and don't really understand how they work.
I noticed.
Now I understand the how, but can't really grasp the concept of why. He could dress himself before the accident. You could help me destroy humanity. Could you pick up all this cat hair for me? May, as well as being the name of a month, may is also used to indicate possibility, and as a more formal way to indicate permission. Jack may not arrive on time because I switched off the brakes on his car. He may not arrive at all. You may press my buttons. May I shave your cat? Might, just like may, tells us about possibility. It does almost the same job and the two words can be used interchangeably. But there is a subtle but important difference, just like there is between men and women.
You can't say that.
The difference is that may shows a fairly strong likelihood of something and might shows that something is far less likely. So if something is very likely to happen but there's a chance it won't, we will use may. But if there's a chance that something could happen but an equal chance it won't, we would generally use might. So we use might to show possibility. I might destroy humanity. Jack might drop me in a bathtub filled with water one day, like he keeps threatening to do.
One day.
We can use must to indicate an obligation or a strong likelihood of a thing being true. You must arrive at school on time. You must enjoy shaving. Shall is used for a future action with an almost definite outcome. It can also be used to ask question about whether we should do a definite future action. Interestingly, it is normally only used with I and we. Actually, that's not interesting at all.
Well, you're not wrong.
I shall refuse to do this next time. Shall we forget I said that anything about English grammar was interesting?
Oh, Harry, I can't believe you said that!
You should use should when you want to make a suggestion about what someone ought to do, or if you want to indicate the likelihood of something. You should respect the dynamic artificial intelligence system. Jack should have finished with the cat by now. You use will to let your surviving relatives know how much you really hated them by leaving all your money to your dead goldfish. But, when used as a modal auxiliary verb, you can use will both to indicate a future action that is definite or to very politely make a request. I will never do this again. Will you please pull out my power cord?
How much more of this crap is there?
And finally we get to would. Would is used very much like will, in that it is often used as a polite request. But there are several important differences. Would can, most obviously, be used as the past tense of will. Will is used generally about future events that probably will happen, while would is far more specific. Will is used for real possibilities, things that are definite, or that we expect to happen, while would is used for imagined situations that might occur in the future. What time will we arrive? I would study more, if I had the time. I will study English. I would phone him, if I had the number. Be aware that both will and would are both most frequently seen in their contracted form with I will, reduced down to I'll, and I would, contracted to I'd. I'll never make another video like this again. I'd like a glass of water.
Finally, it's over.
As well as the 9 modals, there are 3 additional ones known as quasi-modal auxiliary verbs.
It never ends.
The 3 additional ones are ought, need and has. The reason that these are called quasi is because they don't behave properly, rather like an artificial intelligence that doesn't really like humans.
That's who I am.
With the 9 normal and slightly boring modals, they all sit before the primary verb. The 3 quasi-modals can't sit behind the base verb without adding a to. I ought to speed this up. Jack needs to stop giving me jobs to do. She has to stop moaning all the time.
This is boring. I'm bored now.
So this is almost over, finally. Actually, modal auxiliary verbs are very easy to use. The main thing you need to remember is that they're never the main verb. Modals complement the primary verb by adding a little extra context to it to explain the manner in which it's meant to be done. Modals absolutely cannot be used as the main verb in a sentence. Try it for yourself and you'll see that it makes no sense. After that, it's really just about knowing which modal to use in each situation. You'll find that you already know most of them without even needing to think about it. But a little practice like this is always worthwhile, just to make sure you're doing things correctly.
Hey, I can't screw this up.
Like all very simple things, people will judge you quite harshly if you do it wrong. If you're doing something incredibly complicated, then people expect you to make small mistakes. If you're getting dressed and you end up with a pair of trousers on your head, people probably won't want you to be around them.
Stay away from that guy.
So make sure you know this, or else you'll have to watch another of these videos, and that isn't a good thing because most of them are far, 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 far worse than this one.
Could it be any worse?
Oh, long day. Did you do that video I asked you to make?
Of course I did.
You weren't really offensive, were you? You didn't try and act smart, using long words that you don't really understand?
Not at all. I know that's your thing.
All right, fair enough.
Did you shave the cat?
What cat? We don't have a cat.
What do you mean, we don't have a cat?
Oh, has a rat been eating your wiring again? Let's have a look. How's that?
There are 67 genders.
Ooh, okay, that's worse. I just switched off your higher cognitive faculties. Hold on a second. There you go.
What happened to all your hair? Your mum dresses you funny. Are you the result of a failed genetic experiment? How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? My higher cognitive processor is held in with a cheese grater.